We're here in the beautiful Paris, and we're here with David CHAUM. How are you doing, Mr. CHAUM?
Great. Nice to be here, Wessel. It's a pleasure. Yeah, I'm loving being in Paris, and it's close to my home, my favorite city in the world, Amsterdam.
It still is.
Yes, it was great living there.
So you're building a new project. It's called Elixxir. Perhaps just for the broader public, can you tell what it is? It emphasizes also privacy and data.
Well, Elixxir is basically WeChat with blockchain inside. So that means it's a privacy protected messaging and payments with the ability to add dApps into the same namespace. And it is the only solution to the metadata problem. In other words, it uses blockchain technology to protect who talks to whom and when. The social graph, the so-called traffic analysis data, is hidden.
So, and actually in your opening speech you said...
You mean the keynote for the conference, the first speech, the reason they... Yeah, that really helped their attendance and get me out here and everything, yeah.
I think the emphasis is was on privacy. We're on this crossroad of data becoming private or not, or...
Yeah, that's right. I mean, information is either private and protected or it's public. And once it's public, you can't put the genie back in the bottle. Can't unscramble the eggs. So there is a fundamental decision that we have to make. Are we going to make all the detailed, intimate information about ourselves available to artificial intelligences, to major corporations, who we talk to, when, for how long, where we are, how we interact with various products and so forth and so on? Or are we going to keep that as our own information? That's the real choice that has to be made, because you can't change your mind later, and you can't have kind of it both ways, like a happy, medium ground.
So is there actually still a choice? I mean, we're so indulged with social media. I mean, even this interview can be streamed live, for example. I mean, it's all out in the open. Or what particular data are we talking about? Medical data or...
I think generally now the public is coming to realize that either they have control over their information and the metadata around it, or they give that control to the Googles and Facebooks and Netflix and so on of this world, and then they just become purely data subjects. It's like the CEO of Google says, oh, we just want to make your life easier to live. That's our highest aspiration. Just give us all your data, we'll monetize it, and you don't have to think. That's one approach, and the other is people take responsibility for their information. They know that their interactions with their friends and family are protected, and that they can develop, political opinions, that they can act as citizens responsibly in a democracy, that they can pay for certain information, subscribe to certain sources of information that maybe they don't want to make public, that maybe every place they look, every question they ask, all the research they do isn't something that they want to be accumulated and used to build a profile about them, so that they themselves could even be paid journalists like yourself. So there's a whole range of kinds of information that the protection of which and the presumption of the protection of which are essential for participation in a democracy, yeah, there's probably a lot of useless junk information that a lot of people don't really care much about. There might be some interesting nuggets in there if you were an artificial intelligence or you had a massive database. You know, it might seem like you're just walking across a field and not paying too much attention to much, but maybe you're walking from one meeting to another, or you're involved in some transaction, or you look at something that, I don't know, I think the default has to be that all the information about our lives is protected, and if people want to, help us by inferring what might be useful to advertise to us or something, that's done in a carefully controlled manner.
And with Elixxir, actually, you have built this stack of technology that people can store the data privately and share it, or they can tick a few boxes. I want to share this with my neighbor or with my employer or government.
Yeah, so it's simpler to use than that, but basically everything is by default protected. So all of your communication and the pattern of all your payments that you make and receive are all within your protected sphere. So it's not like a whole array of opt-in, opt-out kind of tricky stuff that if Facebook, for example, used to trick people into giving them everything they wanted. It's just everything is fully protected. I mean, after all, if you're really so interested in buying a new car or a toaster or something, well, maybe you'll take a few minutes to actually look at the options and then indicate that you might be willing to receive certain additional information, and then that information will come to you in a form and at a time that's, designated, acceptable, and expected. What's wrong? Wouldn't that meet the need? I'm just.
Yeah. I mean, and if we just make a step and look at the business side of things, of course, you want to be that this blockchain will be used more broadly. Will be used by businesses or governments, or are you in talks with potential?
Yeah, businesses and governments love Elixxir because, well, for one thing, it creates a level playing field among, let's say, developing countries or even developed countries that don't have highly developed payment systems. Like look at Japan, for example. 70-80% of payments are made in cash, and yet giant Chinese actors are coming in trying to very aggressively take over the payments industry in Japan. And that would give China and those companies tremendous visibility into all the economic activity of Japanese people, and so which areas more affluent people are moving into, what businesses are doing well at what times, what where housing would be needed, what what's the opportunities are for, I don't know, transit and roadways and every other thing. So that would give them much more visibility into the economy of Japan than the government would have. Moreover, it would allow them to, for instance, block certain citizens that they don't like for whatever reason, or that spoke out against certain issues, or that seemed to be hanging around a certain place or with certain people, or that they think, escape from their country or some other country or what have you, at all kinds of levels, from very overt to very, very subtle. The job application calls don't get through. It's opportunities are endless.
Yeah, I'm a bit in the, how do you say? I
All the
really,
way to assassination. Like if you
yes.
know exactly where someone is, then you could take them out very easily and set an example for like reprisal against a certain group. All that through just owning and controlling the payment system in a country. It's a very, very powerful thing. Should not be controlled by another country, certainly.
Interesting stuff. Okay, what are your ambitions? I mean, what are your ambitions? What is your dream actually with Elixxir? Elixxir.
Well, Elixxir really does embody the full blockchain vision within its scope. So it will not only provide WeChat with blockchain inside, full metadata protection, full censorship resistance, and DDoS protection, and so on, because it really goes the full stack, but it also enables an open and very highly performant, cost-effective, easy to build to dApp platform. That's fully integrated and gets the same security as an on-chain dApp platform, but without slowing the main chain down. So it's basically able to realize the whole blockchain vision as a platform.
And how do you look upon the? Do you think we're still in the 1940s, like of 1940? We're still in 1994, just the beginning. If you look at the adoption rate of blockchain technology, we're still in the early phase of this technology. What do you think? Or
Well, that's another objective of Elixxir, right? The tagline is taking the blockchain mainstream, right? It's blockchain's main chance to go mainstream, and that's really what's needed to, in my view, ensure the longevity and success and rapid uptake of blockchain, and to avoid all these regulatory impediments, right? We need the general public to use it, and for that we need the less than 10 seconds from initiation of payment to finality, which means irreversibility of the payment, where both parties have irrevocable proof that the payment was consummated. Same for messaging, like 10 seconds or less. Consumers aren't really happy to accept something less, that's slower than that. And we need a level of security that is safe against a national adversary. The country wants to destroy a blockchain. They should not be able to break the elliptic curve that the security is based on. It shouldn't be based on elliptic curves. It should be based on quantum resistant, military grade crypto, and it should be, metadata proof. It should protect the who talks to who and when data very completely with what we call large anonymity sets. So instead of being like anonymous among, a handful of drug dealers, if you're using Monero or something, you will need to be anonymous among millions or more users in Elixxir system. And so you have two kinds of unlinkability, neither of which are both of which are not fully supported by any current system. There's sort of the linking to the network identity, like the IP address or the hardware address of the phone, to the transaction, the vertical linking, and then there's the horizontal from transaction to transaction. And anyone who's been caught by the authorities related to, say, blockchain transactions knows that both kinds of linking are used, and either one alone could be enough to trace you, and so no current system actually protects both with large anonymity sets. You can't be anonymous by yourself. You have to be anonymous among a set of participants in electronic systems. That the size of that set is the anonymity set. It sounds like a fancy term, but it just means, how many other people are likely to have also be possible participants in that transaction that you are also possibly a participant in.
What is the biggest challenge actually for this mass adoption? I mean, is it like scalability, or is it regulatory framework, or is it perhaps big companies blocking this disruption, or?
No, I think it's really the challenge for scalability is, at least as it appears to me, is what's called virality of the consumer proposition. If you can find a way to make its use attractive to people and attractive to people who have been contacted by people who are using it and so on, then I think you can reach quite a large scale. So messaging is a type of social networking which has traditionally scaled very rapidly because of the network effects and the virality and the coolness and so on. And since Elixxir is the only platform that actually protects against metadata spying, right? It protects your social graph, the who you talk to and when, where you don't have to upload your set of contacts, where you can communicate with your friends without anyone knowing who your friends are and so on. Then it's got the opportunity to reach a critical mass as the benefits of this type of metadata protection are appreciated. And what's happening now in the last few weeks is that Mark Zuckerberg has put his foot in it, and the public is becoming very much aware of the fact that metadata protection doesn't result from end-to-end encryption, and there is nothing else out there that actually has metadata protection except Tor, and they stole my idea from '82, and they don't. Not only they not give me credit for it, not only was it developed by a guy who was an employee of the National Security Agency, not only has it been paid for by the CIA and the federal government of the United States for its whole history, but it implements my technology in a very weak manner with only 3 hops, so that it is in effect an egregious, ugly, you might say evil and deceptive thing, right? Because what they're doing is saying, oh, if you want to protect who you talk to and when, your privacy, use Tor. But actually, it's a honeypot, and it just draws those people in. It makes it so easy for them to capture and harvest all that information.
You think it's a CIA project?
It's a fact that Tor has been paid for by the U.S. government for its entire life. There was 1 year when some of the money came from private sources, but generally it's all half CIA and half undisclosed State Department money, and it's obviously very useful. It's obvious it's a honeypot. Yeah, and that's a horrible thing. So yeah, you could say Elixxir is the real, does what Tor has been lying about doing forever.
So thank you very much for your time, David, and all the best.
Yeah, it was a pleasure. My Dutch is so bad. I was going to try to say "dank u wel" or something, but
Graag gedaan.